Character-based leadership. So far, we've discussed the basis. We've also moved on to listen, what about engagement? But today we're going to touch on a very important topic. And I want to call it, I want to give it a name like courageous conversations. Because it seems to me we struggle to do these type of things. So if you want to be a great leader, there's about 5 to 7, if I can call it, fundamental, character-based, courageous conversations. And it's like excellence areas. In other words, we talk always about your personal excellence, and then we move on to occupational excellence, and then we move on to family excellence, then we move on to financial excellence, and that's number 4. And number 5, we're moving on to specifically in my team and relational excellence. And number 6 is organizational excellence. And number 7 is your spiritual intelligence, or let's call it your spiritual excellence. And these are fundamental conversations. So your first conversation is always, tell me who you are, tell me why you exist, tell me where you're going. The next one is that you often do is you're sitting down with the team and you do what we call a character-based, very important discussion. So you take out your 49 character qualities and you look at where you are. But the one that I want to spend quality time with, and I've noticed this in the world today, there's a lot of opportunities to do what we call team building. But I'm saying team building is often time wasting. Why? Because people love, and if you ask me, Mario, are we going to do another river rafting and all this experience? My feedback is yes, let's do it. But on Monday, I'm still the same. So I wonder if all these type of things really work. And I know sometimes when people are doing these type of things, some of the people on the team are very thirsty, but we will keep it there. We're not going to go into that one. But I want to share with you a technique that I've used over the years. Very, very powerful. And it's a technique that we call, it's like emotional heartbeat. And this is powerful. So when I do a team building session, I'm sitting around the corner, sitting around the team, so listen, let's talk about the following and listen to the questions. One of the first things that I love asking them is, what is complicating your life right now? And I've done this so many times, and I want to use a simple example. I'm sitting down with a top executive team, and I ask them, do you know your CEO? And the feedback is, yes, we've been together the last 5 to 7 years. So, well, that's great. Let me ask you to do something. Because you know him, I want to ask him what is keeping him awake at night about the organization. Other words, what's complicating. And then I'm going to ask you also, but I'm going to ask the CEO to do it outside. And then I'm going to ask you to do it here. And then we're going to compare notes. Simple exercise. So I listen to these guys, and I listen to this, and I listen and listen. You know what happened? I suddenly realized these guys are working together the past 5 to 7 years, not knowing each other. Because as this MD and the CEO walked in, the guy said, I know what's complicating your life. It's the financial situation, it's the economic situation, it's this and this and this. And the guy looked at them and I said, that's brilliant. But what's really keeping me awake at night is number 1 is the infighting, the insecurity. And he said, the third thing is what I don't like is that you treat deadlines as guidelines. It was chaos. And what I'm saying is when we do team building session, that to me is a fundamental conversation. Some of the other questions, what's keeping you awake at night? I love that question. I was sitting one day with a father and a mother, and the son was in the middle, and I said, son, what is keeping your mom and dad awake at night? And he said to me, well, I'm the first year student, and there's lots of financial troubles and financial, it's not an easy one. I said, are you sure? And his mom and dad was sitting a little bit behind him, and they look at, and I realized, no, there's something bigger. And I said, do me a favor. Can the 3 of you keep on discussing this and come back to me? What is keeping you awake at night? What inspires you? And this is why we got to ask these questions. What are some of the indicators of high vitality in your life? Things like what gives your spirit and the mind and the heart and the body energy. What are your dreams and fears? What would you like to be remembered for? Discuss your unfolding strategy. What are the things that you need to stop, to let go, to maintain this? And if you can change anything, what would it be? You know, I've noticed that performance appraisals, and listen to this, it's also, and it's causing a lot of pain. It's not always a lot of gain. But having this conversation, it's a crucial coaching, courageous conversation, because it's all about character. So I want to urge you, take this slide, look at this question, sit down with your team. You set the example, say, well, listen, hey, let's talk about it. I want to understand you. I want to understand your heartbeat. Because if you're too far away, you don't understand what's happening in his heartbeat. So a fundamental, courageous conversation, to me, is the one that you're sitting down with the team, and I would say at least once or twice per year. And why is this once or twice per year? I was, again, sitting in Leipzig and visiting the big Airbus company. And I asked a question to that company and said, for those guys who are flying this Airbus, for how long do they have a license? And they looked at me and I said, because you're paying so much to fly this big aeroplane. Surely, you know, it's millions. So how long is the license valid? The guy said 6 months. And I thought, but that's a waste of money. He said, no, it's not a waste of money. There's a simulation exercise. And if this person, this captain, don't pass that simulation, the license is gone. Now, we're sitting in the world with leaders. You know, imagine we've got a similar thing in the workplace or where you are. So listen, or it's like at the airports. You know, when you've got your ticket, they've got a metal detector. You can't enter with, unless I realize there's something metal in my side. In the workplace, I see the same, because this is something that you can use powerfully to understand people, to understand their heartbeat. So it's a courageous conversation. And then the other conversation that I do have often is that people ask you, can I merge career success with family excellence? Can I really merge the two? And often the feedback is, no, you're going to pay a huge price. And I'm saying is, why? And again, you know what I don't understand? Leaders often take their car for a service, for a checkup. And I'm saying that's brilliant, but what about your marriage? What about your relationships? And I want to use a story out of my own example. I've been with business schools lecturing, and it was enjoying, and it was great stuff. And on my way one day back, I was sitting here in the same place, asking my children, do you have a message for me? You know, I was saying, guys, do you have a message? And my middle son said to me, Dad, I know you're lecturing at some of the great universities and business schools of the world. We are missing you at home. And that was like, wow, sure, Mario. This is serious. They're missing me at home. And my thinking was, well, if I can do this and I can do this. So what I'm saying is, have courageous conversations, even with your family. Even if there's a father and a son, or a mother or a daughter, doesn't matter. That's great and it's wonderful, because we're talking about a character-based leadership. And then also, and I'm not going to go too much in the detail, but there's a lot of work in terms of halftime. And halftime is a typical thing that you ask yourself, is there a season beyond my current experience and my current lifestyle? And it's all about significance. I honestly believe we should not wait until we are 50. Every leader must go through the cycle in terms of, what are you doing right now? Are you in your significant phase, yes or no? And those are the fundamental questions that can help you to implement it, because where are you right now? What is still in front of you? And I want to say the best is still in front of you. It's not where you are right now. There's life after even where you are. But I've noticed that some leaders sometimes reach that age, I'm not sure why they call it retirement age. They say, well, listen, now I'm going to go to places like Mossel Bay, and I'm going to open a viswinkeltjie. And I'm saying, why do you want to do a viswinkeltjie? You've never been in sales. You know, what is God calling you to do? What is your significance in life? So that to me is a crucial thing. And I would just want to share with you something that really turned me on, where they've done research on the top 3 regrets of dying people. Now listen to this. This is really powerful. So it was a big research. They asked the people, what are the top 3 regrets of dying people? The number 1 was, and listen to the words, I did not spend enough time with the people I love. Isn't that a powerful statement? So you're working as a character-based leadership, but you missed that one. The second one is, I did not do work what I really enjoy. Imagine you're sitting in a workplace 65% of the time, you don't enjoy it. There's something wrong. This is the huge opportunity that you can make a difference. And the final one is, I did not make a difference. I see this often. I don't want you to end and work through life like this, keep on making the similar type of mistakes. So that to me is crucial. Understand the different phases in terms of where you are and where you're going. But I want to help you with a specific process, because there's a couple of things that you need to understand if you know where you are and where you're going. And I call it leaders in trouble. Now, this is a busy slide, and I want to share this slide also for you when you listen to the presentation. But I was again, sitting in a classroom, and one day I worked through the material of Bruce Wilkinson. And it was all about, do you really understand? You want to finish strong. And this was part of my research. I've done a PhD with the topic of managerial derailment, degeneration. So I love to understand blind spots. Why is it so that people derail towards the end of their life? What can we do about it? So this research really was like an eye-opener for me. And what I want you to do also, assess yourself easily on a 10-point scale, 1 and 10. The first one is, are you physically exhausted? Or are you energetic? And you can imagine, if you are, say for instance, exhausted, or on the other side, energetic. Number 2, emotionally, are you discouraged or are you encouraged? Where are you right now? The third one is, are you mentally bored or discontent, or are you challenged and content on the other side? Now, the reason why, and I want to throw it in here because I want to spend quality time with this slide. We're living in a world that we don't measure a lot of things. And this is something that you need to measure. I'm thinking of a guy who went to the doctor, and the doctor said, no, there's nothing wrong with your heart and lungs. You are perfect. And I'm saying that's such a one-sided perspective. What about your spiritual intelligence? What about your emotional intelligence? How can you say, everything is okay if you've not done this? And this is what I call part of your spiritual as well as your emotional intelligence. Number 4 is about spiritually. Are you depleted, empty, or are you growing or full? Number 5 is about, are you distant and near together? Number 6 is relationally. Are you cold or are you close? Number 7 is internally hopeless or sad, or you hopeful or happy? Number 8, personally insecure or you secure on the other side. Number 9, secretly bitter or angry or forgiving. And number 10 is deeply wounded or appreciated. Specifically that thing on forgiveness. There was some great research from this professor from INSEAD who've done this about forgiveness in the workplace. I see this so often, disappointments. And forgiveness is not something that I want you to score 9 out of 10, because then I'm going to ask you, what about the last one? So use this grit, evaluate yourself, look at where you are. Because as we're getting deeper into character-based leadership, we're not only discussing things like introductory comments or things like engagement. Now we say, well, let's just look at where you are right now. What can you do about the situation? Where are you right now? And what you can do, if you score 60%, that's not the end of the road. I believe each and every person, and that's a fundamental concept, must have a truth teller and sometimes an accountability partner also, to sit down and say, listen, so what are we going to do? How can we close the gap? What do you need? And be serious, and I want to repeat myself now when I said seriously. Do have a person who can do your accountability check and ask these questions, say for instance, once in a month or every 2-3 months, but ask somebody to help you with that specific thing. But I want to start wrapping it up, because we're talking about change. How do we change towards a character-based leadership? How do we move from the old contentment and denial and freezing until there's a new contentment? And this to me is something that we need to understand as we're talking about facilitating change, because I believe you cannot manage change. You must facilitate the change. You must understand the processes. So the first thing is, when you want to implement change, it starts with the power of one. Give me one individual. And I'm trusting as you listen to us that you're going to be the one that says, well, listen, yes, you can count on me, Mario. You can count on us. But if you want to implement change, a lot of people say, well, listen, let's talk. And I say, no, man. Start with the power of one. That one individual, we call it, you must pass it on to a small group. And I love small groups where you take something and say, well, let's discuss it. Let's analyze it. The power of small groups. That's the second principle. The third principle is there's always a creative minority. A certain percentage of people say, well, listen, I want to take what you're giving me and I want to do something about it. That's the creative minority. The fourth one is, as you move on, is what we call, you pass it on to a creative minority to critical mass. So when you implement change, you're going to have a business case. Where are we right now? Where do you want to be? What do we see? But then the powerful role of communication. There's lots of understanding, lots of confusion, because if you don't implement the change in a specific way, I know what's going to happen. They're saying 60 to 70% of all new initiatives risk going down the way. And that's why specifically things like blind spot but mission drift. Why is it so that big organizations are drifting away and drifting away and drifting away? There's been a brilliant book, brilliant research, and I'm starting to bring it in. If you want to help or you want to get help in terms of these assessments, please connect with us so that we can give you those assessments. So again, my final summary. Are you in God's economy or are you in man's economy? There are two different perspectives. And I know this is such a powerful illustration. If you're talking about man's economy of my economy, if people are talking about it's my company. And I want to use a good example. I was on a radio one day and a guy said, well, it's great. Today we're going to talk about Dr. Mario Denton. He's an IR, industrial relations and people management and at the business school. So we're going to ask him about specifically downsizing and right-sizing. And so he said to me, can you talk to us about downsizing and right-sizing? And immediately I said to him, there's two ways of doing it. And when I said two ways, I suddenly realized you better start making something up, because I wonder if you really know the two ways. And luckily he summarized. He said, oh, that's great. There's two ways of doing it. So let's listen to the expert. And I thought, don't call me expert, because I'm still formulating my ideas. And then I realized I've got it. In that split second, I've got it. And he said, so what are the two ways? I said, well, the first way is you're going to follow the rules of the land. And you're going to apply this, and there's going to be first in and all that stuff. And he said, well, that's great, but you've mentioned there's a second way. And I said, well, it depends who's the owner of the business. If God is the owner of the business, you are only a steward. You need to consult with the owner first. And then you're going to implement, and maybe it's going to look differently. And there are the two ways of doing it. And then I realized, yeah, Mario. And the reason why I'm saying this, I fundamentally believe if you want to implement change, who are your three consultants? And I want to use another example. And I love teasing and playing around sometimes with these words, but I was on the way to a place close to us here and was on a day consulting. And as I get into the building, before I get into the building, they do a security check. And the guy asked me, are you alone? I said, no, I'm not alone. So he said, well, fine. I said, you can search. What do you mean you're not alone? So I know, I've got my three consultants with me. So if you're talking three consultants, they start looking around. Say, well, open up the boot. I said, okay, I open up the boot. Say, where are the three consultants? I said, they are with me. And he said, I realized, now, Mario, you've got to be careful. I'm not saying you must do this, please, because that was a specific thing for that specific day. And he said, so who are they? I said, it's FSH consultants. Have you heard about FSH? I never heard about these consultants. Where are they? I said, no, it's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They're always with me. And I thought, that's another stupid thing. And he said, okay, you can go in. But then in the afternoon, and listen to this. And this is powerful. As I was talking and lecturing today, I realized, yeah, Mario, sometimes this stuff. I know you love character-based, but this is a little bit. But as I was getting out of the building in my car, guess who's at the gate again? The same security person. So he opened up the beam, and I said, you remember my consultants? And he said to me, can you pray for me? You know, and I suddenly realized, and that stage I realized, well, I can do this on my way back. And the Holy Spirit said, no. Now is the time. And I decided, I said, well, let me pray for you now, because I believe it's crucial. And why I'm saying this, are you in God's economy, man's economy? So in God's economy, it's His company. You've got a servant's heart. It's how much you can give. It's pleasing God, living with hope. There's something different in this type of principles. There's just something different. And so I want to urge you, please, character-based leadership, is it possible? The answer is yes, yes, yes. And you can do it also, and keep on connecting with us, because this is what we need to do. This is going to make the difference. And I want to keep on saying it. And I want to close with these words. You ain't seen nothing yet. May the rest of your life be the best part of your life. Be blessed and keep on making a difference.